here's a new segment that I want to create here. And whether it's something that we do every single podcast, I'll have no problem with it because it's about dispelling myths. It's called Let's Get This Straight. Mike, lay out the cap situation the Leafs are dealing with going into this free agent period, how it will benefit them, what they're up against, and how it would pertain to John Tavares potentially being lured to Toronto, signed by the Maple Leafs, because you do see a lot of opinion out there that's not necessarily based in fact, pushing this narrative that the Leafs don't have money. Then there's the faction who believe the Leafs have all kinds of money to spend, and there will be no entanglements in the seasons to come. Lay it out for us, 100% fair and square right now.
Well, the strange thing is that in the short term, meaning next year, the Leafs have a great deal of cap space. They have, according to Cap Friendly, they have a little over $22 million in cap space. And now that's a pretty healthy chunk. And we're talking about them having to re-sign guys like Nylander, and we don't know whether it's going to be a bridge deal or a long-term deal.
Can they sign Tavares? That's what we want to get at here.
They can sign Tavares, and this is not an original theory. This has been talked about by Chris Johnson from Sportsnet, and I agree with him, that the perfect scenario would be to sign Tavares to a 1-year max deal. Like they could afford to pay him, like it's the maximum salary that the CBA allows is 20% of the cap. Now, if the cap goes up to $80 million, they could pay John Tavares 1 year at $16 million. But all the risk in that situation is on John Tavares because he could get injured and he doesn't have the security of a long-term deal. If he goes now, the positive here is if the Leafs sign him to a 1-year deal, then they could sign him to an 8-year extension after that. He basically get full money on the 1-year deal, and then maybe they could sign him to an 8-year extension at a little less because they paid that front money in a very creative way. And this is the thing, we know that Kyle Dubas, we know that Brandon Pridham, Lawrence Gilman, as part of this management team, they're going to be creative. Something like this is creative. Now, I don't know how realistic it is. I was talking with another hockey writer this morning, and I said the last time that this happened was, if you remember, Marian Hossa signed a 1-year contract with Pittsburgh, and then he signed he was traded to Pittsburgh from Atlanta. Then he signed a 1-year contract with Detroit the year after. He lost the cup both times with Pittsburgh and Detroit. He was on the wrong side of both times. And then he went for the long-term deal to Chicago, and then he won 3 Stanley Cups. Yeah. So there is precedence here. Yeah. But I don't know whether Tavares is going to accept a 1-year deal. I think he's going to go for the max for the 7 years.
Sure. So this is predicated on Jonathan Tavares wanting to be a part of the Toronto Maple Leafs, like right now. And if he's willing to twist the arm of his agent and have him agree and help construct a deal that helps the Maple Leafs in the short term and then allows them some flexibility and him to get paid going forward, then he will do so. The question amongst our listeners and our followers and the people who consume the Leafs Convo right now, and maybe we can get a nice, inspired, lively chat component of this podcast on YouTube is, does John Tavares, I keep calling him Jonathan, like, he's 14 or something. Does John Tavares want to do this to help the Maple Leafs and help himself and help the team? Does he still have that affinity for the Maple Leafs? Does he still believe that his career trajectory somehow intersects with the Maple Leafs and it all ends with a Stanley Cup